Wow, look at you guys. This is incredible. Welcome to the Virginia Citizens Defense League's 18th annual lobby day. Gun owners of all races and creeds from Virginia and across the country are here to stand in solidarity against gun control. I want to thank all of you for coming out on such a cold day.
Well, we won't back down. We're gonna stand our ground. We know you're trying to open the gates of hell, but we won't back down. So yes, we'll stand our ground. We won't be pushed around. We must keep you from putting our kids in the ground, so we can't stand down. No, we won't back down. We won't back down, baby. There ain't no easy way out. We can't stand down, brother. So we'll stand our ground. And no, we won't back down. 'Cause we know what's right. And we got plenty of fight. And if you think you're gonna keep pushing us around, well, you'll lose that crown. 'Cause we won't back down. We won't back down, baby. There ain't no easy way out. We can't back down, brother. We've got to stand our ground. And no, we won't back down. You know, it's pretty clear that these lunatics think they have the right to strip us of our rights of self-defense. And if they're willing to do that, what else are they willing to do? We won't back down, baby. There ain't no easy way out. We can't back down, brother. No, we won't back down. Back down, baby. There ain't no easy way out. We can't back down, brother. We've got to stand our ground. So we won't back down. No, we won't back down. Virginians, you won't fight this fight alone.
To hear us, I hear them barking. They're so excited.
Sorry about that.
You know, I never get tired of that video. I mean, it was so wonderful standing. I mean, that's what gives me hope for this country. Those people that were there, those 50,000 wonderful people, remind me just, you know, how many wonderful patriots we've got in this country. And that was just a small sampling. But this country is made of people like that, and that's my hope for the future, that those people will all be there and stand up for our rights.
Absolutely. And if the governor hadn't played such stupid games, I'm confident there would have been 100,000 people there.
Easily, no doubt. What a
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Ed Levine, your host here at VCDL Live, joined, as always, with Philip Van Cleve, our president, and Pat Webb, our secretary and treasurer. And we're just going to go through, we've got a lot to cover tonight, and we're going to go through kind of some of our things that we have to cover. And then around half past the hour, around 8:30, we'll have the founders of Guns Out TV join us, and we'll go right to it. So, Philip, what's on the agenda?
Well, we got so much happening. We have number one, we had what was happening just recently down in Surrey. We'll go over that. We have Winchester, of course, a major win there, and stuff going on in Arlington, and so forth. So lots of stuff to talk about. The most recent event was Surrey. I went down there and I haven't had a chance to do a report. I'm planning on doing an alert hopefully tomorrow to catch everybody up on what's going on down there in Surrey County. Surrey County is an extremely rural county. And they've had no problems. And this whole thing, this whole push for gun control seems to be around a couple of employees of the county that felt intimidated when somebody came in wearing a gun on their hip.
Now,
so therefore,
can I interrupt you just for a second? So many years ago, there was a VCDL member who's no longer with us, and he was riding the ferry, and he was open carrying, and someone said something to him on the ferry, and he went to the supervisor and said, "You weren't there." And since he was open carrying and he pointed his finger, they charged him with brandishing. So if you want to find out about that, Google brandishing a finger in Surrey County, and you'll find out about all that. Because when this Surrey case came up, a lot of people wrote in asking me about the brandishing of a finger. So sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, that's and this is really something you don't expect from a rural county. But sometimes people in sometimes leadership or your government in rural counties can be a little tyrannical because they're not used to a whole lot of pushback. And
they don't think the people are watching.
Yeah, they think that they can do what they want pretty much. Well, people were watching. 2/3 of the room was full. Now, if I had my druthers, I'd like to have seen the room full, including lining the walls and down the hall. We didn't have that many, but we had 2/3 of the room. And when they went for comments,
but that was pretty short. That was short notice too, right?
It was short. Well, we've been kind of putting out something for a couple of weeks, but I don't know if everybody got it from us or they picked it up some other way. There were certainly VCDL people there. I don't know how everybody learned about it, but so, it would have been nice to have had even more than 2/3 of the room. It was a decent sized room, so it was a reasonable number of people, but we could have done better. But anyhow, the whole thing was because a few employees were frightened because some people had come in carrying guns, and there was only one person that spoke in favor of the restrictions. Everybody else in this room was against it. So if they were looking to put their finger in the wind in the Board of Supervisors, it was pretty clear which way the wind was blowing. Don't do this. But they kind of marched forward. And the one person that spoke against it was a little disappointing because she was a concealed handgun permit holder and she worked for the county. And she said, basically, I work for the county, and since I can't carry a gun at work, I don't want anybody else carrying a gun. And I'm thinking,
it's like the little kid that gets their hand caught in the cookie jar, and they're like, Philip and Pat had one too.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, you want to have, if you can't be armed, at least you want other people there that could save your life.
That was my thought. And why can't she carry? I mean, that's ridiculous that these people that they trust to, by the way, handle our money and so forth. And
because when you're an employee, you think if someone steals your Post-it notes or doesn't return your stapler, because you're a gun owner, you're going to go shoot them.
And the other point I want to make, though, is that it doesn't matter how many people are for or against something. It's a constitutional issue. It's a rights issue. How many people were against segregation, but it was the right thing to do, or integration, we're for segregation and against integration, but it was the right thing to do. Segregation is wrong. Biased and prejudiced is wrong. And denying somebody a right because you can't exercise that right while you're at work. I mean, come on now.
Well, and I told one of the Board of Supervisors members, one of them that was actually one that initially made a motion to just throw the whole thing away, but he couldn't get a second on that. But I said, hey, you guys can arm your employees. Campbell County does it. Campbell County's had armed employees now for I don't know, 4 years or 5. They've not had any problems that I've ever heard of. You want to protect your employees. Let them carry guns if they got permits. And then
they're like, well, it's against the code of conduct. And it's like, well, it's your code of conduct. Change it.
Absolutely. You can set the boundaries. So if you really feel your employees are in danger, then let them arm themselves. There's I think at any point in time 2 deputies on duty in an entire county. So so this is
So,
something that was, and I spoke my part. I came up and I said, look, a person's life isn't worth anything if they can't protect it. It's worth nothing, and you're not letting people protect their own lives with this. And I I pointed out, yeah, this is a right. This is
Yeah, and people forget that there's a reason that we have a republic and not a democracy. This is not majority rules.
right.
You know, there are guidelines that we have to follow. There are rights that people have that can't be denied on a whim.
It's the
now,
same
my
thing.
friend Sean's asking, is there legislation that puts the responsibility on the entity that disarms you, that they become responsible? And we do have people that put that in.
Yeah.
We just got to get people to vote for it. And means the you out there have to elect pro-gun candidates to make that a law.
Well, in the end, Surrey, after all these people talking and everybody saying no, lots of women too. It was good seeing so many women in there standing up and saying, "Oh no, I carry a gun for a reason." A couple of them had problems in the past and needed to protect themselves. In the end, they decided to postpone the vote until next month. There was a proposal to put it out till February so that the new board of supervisors, which is going to be elected next month on the 8th, could vote on this and not have this crammed down their throat. Well, it looks like they want to get this in before the elections. I think they're afraid that the gun control part of this board of supervisors, those in favor of gun control, I think are worried they're going to lose control after the elections. It seems to me like this is one damn good way to guarantee it.
Right.
Is by putting in gun control in a rural county like Surrey, which, by the way, is a Second Amendment sanctuary. So that's where we are. The battle's not over. And I plan on continuing to push and pressure them to walk away from this and leave it go. But
And members have to just stay tuned to the alert and watch for an action item that says, go to Surrey or write Surrey or call Surrey, and you've got to take that actionable step.
yeah. And so that's what we have going on in Surrey. Then we have backing up to Alexandria. Alexandria, one of our members noticed we got on a bus, one of their what they call a dash bus. He noticed a no gun sign. And so he immediately got in touch with me. I got in touch with the city attorney's office for Alexandria, and I said, I need one of your attorneys to show me the code section that authorizes you to ban guns on your buses. And I waited a day, and then I got a call back, and a person said, yeah, that's a different area. They've got their own attorney for the buses, and here's that number. So I don't feel like they were giving me the runaround. I think they were just sorting out where I needed to go. So I went to that attorney, and again, he returned my call within a day. And he said, yeah, that's actually one different attorney. He says, however, let me do this. He said, let me talk to that attorney and make sure we get an answer back to you right away. So this was also really being handled very, very well. I was pleasantly surprised because the city council is so terrible, but their employees seem to be pretty good. Then, so I got
sometime when they know they're wrong, they hide in a hole, and we got to fight for them to get the answer.
And these guys weren't like that. And
and that's good.
It is excellent. I love it. I mean, this is the way public servants are supposed to be. They're our servant, not our master. And while city council doesn't seem to have absorbed that, their employees seem to, at least the ones I dealt with, seem to have understood this. So the manager, the general manager of the buses called and said, oh yeah, you're right. Those buses, they're brand new. We got 6 of them. That's how they came. They were they had a label of all the different things you couldn't do on the bus.
Well, if they're brand new, why did they deface them with a stupid sign?
I guess that's how the factory ships them, according to them. I have no reason to believe it's not the case. I really don't. So he said, we'll take care of the sign. And I said, good. And he agreed. He said, yep, gun owners can carry on our buses. Absolutely. I said, okay. But I got to thinking, I don't want anybody, the police not to know this. So I contacted the police, and again, top-notch response, got right back to me right away. And I explained the situation, and this lieutenant I talked to, very professional guy. He said, "I do need to check this out." I said, "Sure. I don't expect you to take my word for it. Please contact your city attorney and they will confirm." And I also gave him the general manager's information for the Dash bus. I said, "Contact both, and He says, "Okay." He said, "If anything comes up, I'll call you. If you don't hear anything from me, no news is good news." So we should well be into the no news is good news stage right now on that one. So
for public transportation, we kind of had a similar now that because of Bruin and Maryland shall issue and a lot of permits coming out, and Maryland and DC are like, yeah, you can't carry on the metro, so you can't carry anywhere on the metro. I'm like, well, you're talking about Maryland and DC, but in Virginia you can carry on the metro. But because they're so used to saying that for DC and Maryland, they kind of put a blanket statement out going, yeah, you can't carry on the metro yet. We're working on it. And I'm like, well, if you're in Virginia, you can carry on metro buses and metro rail. You just got to be careful that you get off at your stop. And even though the stop for Arlington Cemetery is in Virginia, that's one of those prohibited places as well.
Yeah, by the way, I think Maryland now you can carry on the metro in Maryland unless they change their law. So it's really DC is the gap, but you have to have a Maryland permit. Don't go into Maryland with your gun if you don't have a Maryland permit. But my understanding is you're okay on the metro if you're in Maryland or Virginia, if you got both permits. And DC's the gap. I think that's going to go away. I think we're going to be able to.
You just mentioned Maryland. More and more people are getting their permits in Maryland. But as you recall, in the alert, this last alert, there was a guy in Maryland. I think he was a military guy, and he stopped an attack on somebody, saved the day. The cops were like, "Nice job, but by the way, you're arrested because you can't have this gun and you can't have this ammo." And they arrested him for it.
And he didn't use the gun at all.
No,
it had nothing to do with his stopping an attack.
You know how scary guns are in Maryland.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and this may help eventually push us towards getting universal recognition that you can carry in all 50 states. That really.
That guy's name, if you want to Google that guy is Lloyd Mudrow.
And he's got a equivalent of a GoFundMe. It's not GoFundMe, but it's similar to help cover his legal expenses, and that would be a worthy cause because he didn't do anything wrong. He tried to help.
Hey, before we go too much further, I do want to mention for the people on the different Facebook pages, share the live link with your friends and stuff. Share it on your page. We've got some pretty awesome guests coming on a little bit later tonight, and your friends are probably going to want to see it. And I also want to give a shout out to Jeff Arrington, who said the battle will never end. That's absolutely true. There will always be people that are trying to take our rights away from us, and we can never let our guard down. Ooh.
But a lot of this stuff, by having alert members like we had in Alexandria, can help us fix this stuff. And because of these laws,
we have our people out there. Our membership are our eyes and ears on things like this.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
And because VCDL has sued before and has been successful, and we're such a high profile organization, usually just a phone call from me is all it takes to fix stuff. Once in a while, that's not the case, but usually it is.
But we still have to show up at the General Assembly. We have to show up for Lobby Day, and we have to show up for the committee meetings and fight for our rights. Fight for bills that we support and fight against bills that are taking away our rights. Whether we have a favorable legislature or a not so favorable legislature, we have to show up, because the second we don't, you can bet the demanding mommies will be there, and the other people that are trying to work to pass gun control will be waiting for that chink in the armor.
Yeah.
So if you guys have not taken off work for Lobby Day yet, it's January 16th, Martin Luther King Day. A lot of people are off anyway. But if you do work, make sure you take that day off and come down and join us in Richmond to help fight for the rights for all gun owners in Virginia.
Yeah, and if we do a good job in our fight, then we'll clear up a lot of this other gun control that's going on. So in the future, we won't have to even deal with it.
Yep. That's like our Super Bowl. So make it a point to be there.
Believe me, that again, I've been watching. Look at the Richmond Times-Dispatch really had just a load of photos that I hadn't seen that they had taken for Lobby Day 2020, and it was quite a treasure trove of stuff, especially even the pictures of the some of the gun controlling Democrats looking out the window at that massive crowd. It definitely had an effect. So we need to keep doing that kind of thing. Maybe we can't get that big of it, but we should be able to get thousands and thousands out there.
Well, you're doing something right when they pass a law to try to stop you.
Yes, yeah, when they were big time, they really did. That was, but we're gonna have to just turn that around. Tess Elshire, one of our executive members, is asking if we plan to do buses. I don't think we've discussed out that far yet, but it's time to be thinking of it. I would say yes. Yeah. I would say yes.
I see no reason why not. And Tess volunteered the last several years to organize the buses. So if she's willing to do it again, would be more than happy to accept that offer. But Tess has really done a fabulous job organizing buses for the last several years.
Yeah, any kind of organizing.
Along with Layla. Yeah.
Layla
Myers.
Yeah, she's another.
It's not just we need a bus here. It's like getting the payment and figuring out how many seats and who's coming from where and where we need a bus. And it's a full-time job.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Oh, by the way, in 2020 with the big 50,000 plus lobby day, I don't remember how many buses we had, but Tess was adding buses left and right that year. It was mind-boggling.
And it didn't even count all the buses. We had a load, but then it turned out there was a load we didn't even know about that showed up from other places.
Oh, yeah. There were other people drawing buses as well. Yeah.
Yeah, our volunteers, I mean, it takes all types of volunteers to run buses, to be our lookout teams that look out for things that are going on. There are people that are working our gun shows. In fact, the other day when Pat and I went to Texas and we were talking about social media and things like that, someone commented, even though we have our logo up in the top corner of this feed, they said, you need it bigger somewhere. So we got on the horn, quickly talked to our graphics guy. And that's why at the bottom of the frame now you see visit vcdl.org/join. So a big hand for our graphics guy, Wallace, for fixing up our frame. Thanks, Wallace.
Yes, sir. And by the way, Tess is doing a little upgrade down here. She said that she knows of 115 buses in 2020. We had 57 of those. That means for every bus we had, there was another bus that somebody else was sponsoring. It's mind-boggling, and that explains that massive number of people down there. You need to have something to get all those people, and that all the people that we did have there didn't account for the people that arrived and couldn't get from the parking lot, a mile away down to the event very quickly.
Yep.
So we still want to tell people about the big win in Winchester because some people are still not knowing what happened there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've been doing this for a year. This shows you how the wheels of justice can just creep along. And of course, part of that creeping was Winchester, the city of Winchester. I do have to say that so people don't think we're suing.
Oh, yeah, not the Winchester Firearms.
Yeah, the city of Winchester, who shamefully shares the name of a famous and great firearm company. They dragged their heels. They kept drawing this out and drawing that out, and this, that, and the other, all these legal moves to drag their heels and slow it down. And that worked because it went on for a year. But at the end of the day, towards the end, when the judge was looking at finally making a ruling, the Bruin case was coming up, and then he decided he just wanted to see how that turned out for further guidance from the Supreme Court. And of course, it went the way we would have hoped. And then he got input one more time from in light of Bruin. He let both us and City of Winchester put in another last brief. And then he spent about 3 weeks carefully, and he wrote 41 pages on this thing. So he took it, and he was apparently short somebody to help him, a legal assistant. He was short one of them for some reason. I don't know if it was somebody out on maternity leave or whatever. And so he had to do most of that himself, which didn't help either, being a busy judge. But at the end of the day, he basically said that he put a stay on any Winchester banning guns in parks, and at permitted events or events that should have been permitted. All those have stays. Winchester can do nothing. And that was effective immediately. So we've had that now for a while. Now, what that means to a layperson is that he thinks that we stand an extremely high chance of that passing muster all the way up to the Supreme Court. That if it went all the way to the top, they're going to say, yep, no way you can ban guns in parks. No way you can ban guns at permitted events. He wasn't so sure because community centers and recreation centers are government buildings. He wasn't so sure that they might not slip through the cracks.
But if they're a sensitive area, why don't they have bars on the windows and magnetometers and take your keys out and go through the thing like an airport?
Well, let me just say this, and this is important, Ed. It's not over yet. This doesn't mean that a permanent injunction, once we actually go to trial on this, might not at that point include those as well. It's very possible. We're not done yet. This was a preliminary. This was just looking at the Constitution and looking at your case. These two stand out as no-brainers. The other part with community centers and recreation centers, not quite so confident. That doesn't mean it won't happen. It just means it's not as clear in his mind, the judge's mind, as the parks and public areas were.
Let me just say to the followers that lawsuits are not cheap, and we'll always take your help at vcdl.org/donate to help with the lawsuits and help us research and help us fund them. It takes time, people, money, and energy.
Yeah, and you don't want to let a lawsuit slip by that you could go after just because you don't quite have the money to do it. That's a shame. We definitely need to be casting our eyes at Richmond. There's no doubt.
Right.
But now,
and just because we won the injunction doesn't mean that we're done with this. We still haven't gone to trial yet. So this still has to be heard. He's just saying that VCDL stands a good chance of winning on these points. And so I'm going to not let that part of the law be enforced, but I'm still going to hear the case later on. So it's still a long way to go.
And if you're in Alexandria or Loudoun or Richmond or some of the other places, don't be disheartened. They are all on our map.
Yeah, we're looking at
Absolutely.
every one of them is a wart on the map of Virginia, and we need to get rid of those warts.
And those warts are watching Winchester right now.
Yes, they are. Oh, yes, they are. Yes, there's no doubt. I've heard from some of them that they're indeed keeping an eye, and we're keeping an eye on Winchester. And I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see perhaps a few localities backing off on a couple of their park and permitted event bans on their own. I'm not saying it's happening yet, but I won't be surprised if it does happen. I'm not surprised.
Well, when they start seeing the dominoes fall, they look at their budgets and go, do we really want to fight a fight that we're going to lose anyway, have egg on our face and cost us a lot of money?
Or just quietly let it slip away. So we may have to keep our eyes open.
For any of those of you out there that are the gun grabbers and you want to quietly let it slip away, we're okay with that.
But this is all the more reason that our watch team for local government people out there, all you guys that volunteered to keep an eye on your own local government, you need to do that, especially if you're in the 16 localities that have this ban. Right now is a good time to get, if you haven't been doing this, you need to be watching your city or your county board of supervisors, city council, or town council, because it's possible this stuff could come up on their agenda very quietly for them to repeal some of this, and we won't know about it unless somebody tells us.
Read the alerts, share the alerts. Go look at our vcdl.org calendar and look where, like, Philip's got an event tomorrow. So go to the events, go to the meetings, and get involved. These are your rights, and you need to help, as Philip says, carry the water. You need to carry your own water to keep your own rights.
Yeah, I'll be in the Christiansburg area tomorrow. So yeah, that should be on the calendar. It's a Monday Constitution group, I think, that's having the meeting. So let's see. Ah,
I
when
I did have something I want to say, and we say this almost all the time and every time, but I've got a couple messages in my social media. VCDL, what we stand for, it has not changed. We are a gun rights organization in Virginia. Our tagline is "Defending your rights and defend yourself." And people sometimes will get mad at us that we don't go protect or do something about abortion clinics or take down statues or Black Lives Matter, all of this stuff that a lot of people care about. We don't. We care about gun rights in Virginia only. That is what we're about. So we are very narrowly focused. And while that out of 1,000 people, that might make one person upset, we'd rather serve the 999 with what our very narrowly focused mission is.
there are lots of
Right.
groups that cover other issues.
And it's not that we don't necessarily care about the other issues. We all of the
Personally.
people that work in VCDL do care a lot about a lot of issues. But as an organization, we are focused strictly on Second Amendment rights, the right to keep and bear arms, which, by the way, is not just guns. It is, and I was listening to something on this today about the definition of arms, and it was any tool that you could use for defense or offense. Those were considered arms back when the Constitution was written. And so, by that definition, we are concerned that's why we backed the switchblade bill, and we want to see switchblades taken off of the banned to conceal list. Why should you not be able to put a switchblade in your pocket?
Right.
Even Sasslaw said he used to carry a switchblade in his pocket when he was in school. So, it shouldn't be against the law to put something that you can legally own in your pocket or put a coat on that covers it.
By the way, I am starting, and I'm to get patrons. We've got a long list of bills that we want to do, and I'm starting to get patrons. I've got 3 confirmed so far, and a bunch of others that are looking at things. So
it's kind of funny that people are new, not funny, haha, but peculiar that people that are new to VCDL write in like, "Hey, you guys, have you ever heard of something called constitutional carry? You guys should put that in. You should do that."
Every year for how many decades now?
Well, it's happened decades, but it's been a lot of years. Yeah, we've been doing that. But new people are new people. We all.
Yep.
By the way, if you have a subscription to the Virginian Pilot or the Daily Press, there's an article where I'm pretty highly quoted in there. It says gun rights groups. So they're really talking about VCDL in this article. Takes aim at Virginia laws in wake of recent U.S. Supreme Court decision. So I was interviewed for a while on this, and so an article's now come out talking about how we're planning on doing as best we can to take down as many gun laws as possible based on the Bruin decision. I think a whole bunch of them are ripe. I think the other side is probably losing their mind about this time, but actually it's already lost. Maybe it's a double negative. If you lose your mind, you already had lost it. Does that mean you'd find it? I don't know. Anyhow. So
I don't know. Maybe
check
it means
that out.
mind blown.
I'll put a link in the alert on Monday. Like I said, I'll update everybody on Surrey that's not watching this. It's my little insulin pump bugging me. But
I see Angela Akers on the Facebook page. So she's involved with the Second Monday Constitution group where you're going to be speaking tomorrow night. I don't know if she wants to put a link to that in the chat.
Yeah, Angela, put it in there. If you got a link, let everybody take a look at that. If it's open to the public, people may want to come. It's been a while since I've done anything in Christiansburg.
Yep.
It's a long drive, but I'm more than happy to do it.
It is, and I think I'm going to be down there in January. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, that'll be getting close to the General Assembly starting, or will it be in the middle of it?
Yep. Yep. It'll be right before Lobby Day.
Yeah, January's not far away now. I mean, I wish I could say
Oh,
it
no,
was,
it's not.
but
Nope. And November's right around the corner, by the way.
That's why I'm trying to get patrons for our bills now. Give plenty of time.
Sean Kennedy says we should also talk about Article 1, Section 13 of the Virginia Constitution, and we do.
Well, yes, and we do. And by the way, the judge, I believe it was the judge in the Winchester case.
Winchester,
yeah, he said that, he sort of said, yeah, the two are tied. That this whole idea about history and all that, going back to the founding days for the Bruin decision, would apply to Article 1, Section 13 as well. You can't, because see, Winchester tried to say, well, the second, our version, Article 1, Section 13, got modified back in 1971. And so they were trying to make something out of that. And the judge said, no, I don't even want to talk about that. We need to go back, way back before 1971, back when Virginia was founded and the United States was founded, and look at that time frame. So he threw that argument out. That was gone. But so that's very good, Sean. We got basically them saying we've got the same kind of protections. That judge is saying that, and I believe the Supreme Court in Virginia would concur. We never know for sure, but I would think they would. That you need to go back to the founding days on that.
Well, I know we were going to have the guys from Guns Out TV on, and I hate to be a liar that I was going to have John and Shermichael on the program with us, but it looks like Shermichael just landed, and now he's trying to find his guns. So we're going to bring John up without Shermichael. And so instead of Shermichael was going to sing and John was going to dance, John is going to do both now. Right, so if you'd welcome to the program, everybody, John Keys from Guns Out TV.
What's going on, Ed, Philip, Pat? How y'all doing? Long time no see.
Yeah. Well, we're haven't
seen you guys since rain.
To kind of set the stage, on the third Thursday of every month, we hold the VCDL in-person meeting live at XCal now. And they had this huge, they had all these YouTube stars and people and gift bags and cars and everything set up for range day. And I'm like, what is this? And they're like, oh, we're doing this, this, and this, and this. And they set up a table for Philip and I right out front. And we talked to everybody, and we met with John and met with Shermichael. It's like, well, what you guys are doing is fantastic. And it's almost like a new drug, we need to know more about it. So I said, would you come on our program, tell us what you're doing, why you're doing it, how it all works, how people can support you, that whole thing. And they agreed. So here's John.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Now the pressure's on. Now I got to do good. I got to sound good. I got to make this all sound compelling. First off, is my audio okay? Because I'm a habitual offender of having terrible audio for one reason or another. So if my audio is good, then I think we could proceed. But again, thanks for having us on, even though Shermichael, he's going to try to get on here. We'll see if it pops up. But we really appreciated meeting you guys. Well, for me, I know Sherm knew about your organization prior to this. I did not, prior to meeting you guys the night before range day. And it was just so good that we met you when we did, because if we would have felt bad if you guys weren't a part of our first inaugural range day. It only made sense. But yeah, our entire platform is about humanizing firearms culture. And the significant story behind why the Guns Out brand even came to be was because, I'm a prior service Marine Corps veteran. And my entire career, I never owned a firearm. I didn't own a firearm while I was active duty. And then when I got out, still for a decade after that, I never owned a firearm. Not because I didn't like to shoot firearms, not because I wasn't proficient with firearms. It was just because during my stay in active duty, the experience with firearms was such an ushered experience. I wasn't ready to take on that responsibility of being a private citizen owner of a firearm. And I mean, I give all the credit to the people that showed me how to use firearms in the very beginning to instill that respect in me, that I respected firearms enough to know that until I was ready to really go down that rabbit hole, I didn't do it. So then 2020 hit, the world is on fire, and that changed everything. So I bought my first pistol and rifle, and from there, the entire community opened its arms to me. I mean, every time I went to the range, I was meeting new and interesting people that I probably wouldn't have met or spoke to otherwise, because I probably wouldn't have seen them anywhere but the range. And these people didn't look like me, they didn't sound like me, but the one thing that stood true no matter what was they were willing to teach me something I didn't know, and they were also willing to learn from me if there was something that I knew that they didn't. So to be embraced by such an inclusive community that I did not know existed, I mean, I was just compelled to do something more. My friends and family told me, hey, you know, this journey you're on, you should kind of try to publicize it. So then I talked to Shermichael, and this is his mainstay. He's built his career on media. He's good at it. He knows the politics of everything involved as it pertains to the 2A arguments out there right now. So I just thought it would be a strong partnership. And I mean, it has proven to be extremely effective. We both bring our own assets to the table, but at the end of the day, the primary mission stays the same. And that is to humanize firearms culture and make it so other people are at a minimum giving the conversation a chance. Because, you know, media, mass media, news, they polarize everything that has to do with firearms culture to the point of which people are choosing to be indifferent. They stay indifferent. It's like, you know what, just miss me with that conversation. But the content that we're putting out there, the people that we're showcasing, the experiences that we're showcasing is all in an effort to make people see like, hey, listen, this isn't as bad and as scary as you think it is. And at the end of the day, you can see somebody really progress and become knowledgeable, become proficient, and become a better citizen, I dare to say, because now you can protect yourself better, you can protect others better, and you can also educate more people. So that
one thing I really noticed about your range day is it was like a mini lobby day to us. The cross section of people, of races and colors and sexes of people at that event is not what big mainstream media wants you to think a gun owner is.
100%, 100%, 100%. And that's I think that was the quickest thing that was embraced by our brand, is that everybody in the community was just happy to see us there.
Yeah, well, the other side is trying to divide us.
Yes, right.
We, as gun owners, are natural people that want to unify. You know, your story is not unusual. I remember reading a story about a gay guy that finally decided to become a gun owner. He was worried about being attacked, and he was scared to death to go to the range. He thought, "Oh my God, you know," he was frightened. He thought people were going to be so condescending and hateful. And he got there, and he said, "Man, I've never been in front of a more nice group of people in my life."
Yeah.
And you know, as a female, when I first started shooting, and especially when my husband and I got into competing in IDPA years ago, frequently I was the only female at the range, and a lot of women are intimidated by that fact, and they are scared to go to the range. But I found everybody was so eager to help and to give me pointers, and it was a very welcoming and inclusive situation. You know, I really felt comfortable.
It's because it's that important. You know, it's because it's that important, Pat. It's because everyone's safety is paramount as it pertains to being a gun owner, a responsible gun owner. So that's why the community is so inclusive about it. That's why people are so willing to help a novice shooter or even an experienced shooter that might be doing something the wrong way. That's why the community is so ready to engage, to educate, to empower, and to include, because at the end of the day, this is all of our safety we're talking about. We're talking, you know, each and every person with a gun, we're talking about your safety as the gun owner, but we're also talking about everybody else's safety around you as a gun owner. Even in a scenario where you're stopping a mass shooter or you're preventing a robbery or something like that, you have to know how to carry yourself, and you have to know how to handle that firearm properly. So That's what I see in the community. I see that everybody knows what's at stake for gun owners. So we want to try to make certain that everyone's getting the right information.
So Guns Out TV, well, that sort of came out of that whole experience saying, yeah, this is, I mean, you were saying that's when you became a gun owner, you got into the community. And
Yes.
when did you and Shermichael meet? Or
So I've been knowing Shermichael since probably like 2015, 16, and we've worked together loosely, and then we started working together more frequently when we both became executives at this media company. And I didn't know he was a gun owner the entire time, like literally until I was having a conversation with him about going to purchase a firearm. And then he was the one that told me back in March of 2020, he's like, John, I think this is the last gun show that they're having because of the pandemic. They're about to shut everything down. So he was like, hey, you know what? Me and Armstrong are going down to the last gun show. You should join us. So I joined them, and I walked out of there with a Smith & Wesson M&P Sport 2 and a Glock 19X, and everything changed after that. It was a lot of fun, a lot of education. I mean, my whole family took part in it. And it was pretty cool. So then after talking with Shermichael and telling him about my experience after that particular gun show, he was just like, John, we have something here. This is pretty significant. And then we started looking at the metrics and the data about how Black gun owners and female Black gun owners were the largest growing within the community. So obviously that's a market that we can reach. That's a market that we can relate to, because me personally, when I started looking, in social media and YouTube to find, educational and even entertaining things as it pertains to firearms ownership, I didn't see a whole lot of Black people doing this type of content. So we saw that there was an opportunity there to really create something that could be beneficial. And man, listen, I'm humbled. Both Shermichael and I are very humbled to see the impact that we've had already. Range Day was a very good affirmation of that. I mean, you have a lot of people out here with thousands and millions of followers on YouTube, on Instagram, but can they pack a building with over 2,000 people at an event? We've seen instances where they can't. So for us to have that many people travel from far and wide all over the country, I mean, I'm talking about crossing all kinds of state lines just to come to our event. It was absolutely humbling, and there he is.
Yeah, hey guys, sorry for being late. TSA always seems to lose my gun.
You might want to stop traveling with guns, bro. You might just need to keep guns in every state.
Well, I can just see the TSA right now. They're like, black guy with a gun, black guy with a gun.
Oh man, I'm telling you.
This always happens, so I do apologize.
Hey Sherm, you got that camera thing going again where I only see the bottom part of your face. Can you scoot your camera up a little bit?
It's like a reverse mask.
There you go.
This? Is that better?
No, a little.
It's like it cuts you off at that right here.
How's that?
One more click like
you
that.
Feel only like here to here.
There you go, right there. Perfect.
All right, there we go.
There we go.
Yeah, so I was out of town and traveling, and thanks, first of all, you guys for pushing this back. I thought I would be at my house in time. I get off the plane, I'm waiting for my bags, a suitcase come up, and I'm waiting. I'm saying, okay, well, where in the heck are my guns? So then I go to the Southwest. I said, hey, I'm waiting for firearms. The lady, she types up, oh, well, they're here. I said, well, I don't have them. It literally took, I got in around 7-something. It took until maybe, I don't know, I'm only about 20 minutes from the airport, 15 minutes from the airport. So up until about 15 minutes ago, they just gave me my guns. And guys,
sounds like an episode to me. Guns Out TV shows you how to fly with firearms.
And it should be, because I have the worst luck in the world when it comes to firearms. But guys, I'm just so honored to have this conversation with you guys and all the good work that you're doing. I was just reading an interesting article on CNN of all places, talking about the New York brewing case and the impact that case is having across the country. Lawsuits being filed at the local level, the city level, and also federally, challenging some of these old and draconian gun laws. And when you look at some of the states that are having these lawsuits and these challenges, quite a few of these laws trace themselves back to Jim Crow era, back to eras in the country's history where there were certain people who did not want Black freed Americans to have guns, because we know, as you guys know, and as your members would also know and appreciate, is that the ownership of a firearm is a very liberating thing, because it is that firearm that maintains freedom. And one can say you have freedom, but how do you maintain freedom from forces that may seek to remove it or take it away or restrict it? And the firearm most certainly produces the ability to do that equally among all people. And so, the Bruen case is going to be a fascinating thing. And it was crazy that I just happened to read that on my plane ride flying back to Virginia ahead of our conversation tonight.
Right.
I was going to say, by the way, in the South, it was to keep blacks from having guns.
Mm-hmm.
But in the North, it was to keep Catholics as one group that they were. And I'm Catholic, by the way, to keep Catholics from having guns.
Oh wow!
Oh yeah, that was the northern.
And even brand new gun owners go out and go, "Hey, Second Amendment, so I can defend myself." If for a bad guy breaking in, it's like, well, that's the frosting, but that's really not what the Second Amendment is for. Right. And then when you explain it, they're like mind blown. They had no idea.
Well, this is why I've stopped arguing about people saying, well, an AR means assault rifle, or an AR is just a modern sporting rifle. My new attitude is, I don't care. Call it what you want. You want to call it an assault rifle? I'm okay with that. You want to say it's a weapon of war? I'm okay with that, because I'm allowed to have a weapon of war. So call it what you want. It's mine, and you can't take it away. Or if you want to call it a modern sporting rifle, I'm allowed to have that as well under the Second Amendment. So I don't care what you call it. Knock yourself out.
Yeah, those things.
Away.
Those things are in some ways to me a bit semantics. Being someone who works in media and worked in politics for a long time, in communications, and words do matter. But I think so often people focus on the minutia of words so much so that they sort of force people away from the original intent. And that's why contextualization is important, which is what the Supreme Court recently did again with the Bruen case, referencing that case again. Contextualization and assessment and analysis are important. And when you allow people to say, well, this gun is this, and it shouldn't be allowed because of X, Y, and Z purpose, it really does sort of force you away from the original argument, which is, do I or do I not have the right to have this thing? That is a fundamental question.
Yes.
But when you start bringing in all these other 1,000-foot things, then it removes the conversation and moves it all over the place. And so I agree with you 100% when you say, call it whatever the heck you want. That does not remove the original intent, which was to keep and bear arms. And some people say, well, they didn't have AR-15s in the 1800s, 1700s when the amendments were first drafted, et cetera. Well, that's very true. They didn't have a lot of things when the Constitution was first drafted. But what we know, society modernizes, it develops, but the intent remains the same. The original intent remains the same. And that's why I think contextualization is important here. And we can't sort of be boggled down by, then they didn't have this thing, they didn't have that thing. Well, that's true. 1,000 years ago, they had knives. And, so you just can't get lost in that.
Founding fathers were smart. They said arms. They didn't say you have the right to bear a musket. They didn't say that. They could have been specific.
They could have.
They could have. They really could have.
Arms, which means
one thing that I tell people when they talk about what should be allowed and what shouldn't be allowed under the Second Amendment is I remind them that the Revolutionary War was fought entirely with privately owned firearms. We didn't have an army. We were breaking away from the government that controlled us, and a tyrannical government, by the way. And it was fought with the cannons that we used were privately owned. The rifles and everything else that we used were privately owned. So yeah, it meant that the government should have no firepower that the citizens don't also have.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, Pat. And I think, for a lot of people of color now that are really getting into firearms, whether it's sporting or whether it's competition stuff or hunting, or just merely for self-defense, there is a very unique and storied history of Black people in particular owning guns. And I think a lot of that history, guys, has sort of been forgotten. And I've been wanting to write an article about this for quite some time now. Once you had that huge migration of freed Blacks from the South to the North, clearly because there were better economic opportunities and even education opportunities up north, a lot of Black people really gave up a lot of that history with guns. So whether it was the hunting that we used them for, we just gave it up. We quite frankly gave it up. And so you fast forward 2 generations, it's very easy to sort of forget, like, oh man, my great-great-grandfather owned shotguns and rifles, and that was a very normal part of the culture and history. And now you have a lot of Black people sort of returning to those things. And so what I always like to tell people, say, this is a right that a lot of our people fought to have because they didn't have it. It's a right that guaranteed freedom. There's some interesting books when you think about the civil rights
movement. Don't take it lightly.
No, don't take it lightly, Ed, at all. And there's some interesting books about the civil rights movement. And I don't know how many of your folks in the audience may be aware of this. A lot of Black people aren't even aware of this. Some experts have argued that if it were not for Black veterans having guns, the civil rights movement may not have gone the way it went. And there were a lot of very horrible people in the South who had to come to this realization, holy smoke, there's some of these people who are willing to use firearms and say, hey, we're going to demand freedom. Just like everybody else, we want equity and freedom. It was the firearm that enabled that process. And we really can't forget the history of guns in our country, from fighting the British, the Revolutionary War, to fighting the French, and all of these other wars that we've had in our country up until current day, 50, 60, 70 years ago, the civil rights movement. The firearm has always been used to bring that equal playing field, if you will, against individuals who sought to restrict freedom, restrict liberty, restrict the rights to the pursuit of happiness and justice that we all enjoy. And that has sort of been why so many folks have used guns. And I know folks say, well, that's not a big thing today. We don't really worry about those things today. And maybe we do live for the most part, I put the caveat here, guys, in a peaceful society. But there's nothing to say that we can't ever go back to the past. Because there's that old aphorism that I'm sure you guys would appreciate. History repeats itself. And I certainly don't want to be on the repeating end of history of my ancestors. And I'm sure you, as a Catholic, and so many other groups in this country, don't want to be on that repeating end.
Right. Yeah.
Well, you see, like what happened even in Venezuela. I mean, where they take everybody's arms, and then next thing you know, they're wanting you to, load up into cattle cars, and people think this would never happen in my time, and it happens in our time.
We just got to be vigilant. Yeah, no doubt.
No, that's a good point.
And disarming people is always the first step in all of that. Always, every time. Because it's
give us your guns, we will keep you safe.
Pat, what were you saying?
I said, look at Ukraine.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, that can happen anywhere. I mean, I'm pretty sure the people in Ukraine didn't think that they would be invaded, and yet they were. So
yeah,
and then the government was praying everybody had enough guns.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we've had to send weapons, we've had to send ammo and arms because they just, quite frankly, haven't had enough. Us and other countries, of course.
But our view, I was going to say, our views on all this has always been we need to bring in everybody that we can to be gun owners. We want to make that Second Amendment such a high voltage third rail that any politician that even looks at it starts to feel his hair tingling from the electricity about to leap out and take him out. That's our ultimate goal. If we get everybody, if we make that such a third rail, nobody touches it, then we just keep our eyes open, but we should be in pretty good shape. And I think we're working in that direction. I mean, you're seeing the country, a lot of it moving in that direction. Everything is moving in the right direction, but now is not the time to stop pushing. Now is when you push harder than you've ever pushed before.
Yeah, because that's a good point, because there are so many different groups that are buying guns. And even if you look at the politics of it, right? I mean, you have people who are not, Republican voters who are buying guns. You have people of, every group. You have Asian communities, you have Hispanic, Latino, you have LGBT. I mean, you got everybody buying guns. And
we just need to get them all to vote too.
Yeah. Yes,
that's right. I had an interesting conversation. It's so funny you said that, Ed. I had an interesting conversation with someone, and a guy asked, he said, well, a lot of these people who are buying guns now, they don't vote Republican. I said, many of them probably never will. I said, so then as a former strategist, my question becomes then, if you're not going to vote Republican, that's your right. People vote what the hell they want. That's not my business. But at least vote for people on your side that are pro 2A. And that's a conversation we can have. And I, you think about Democrats back in the day that were very pro gun. You think about some of the Reagan Democrats, the Blue Dog Democrats. This is only 35 years ago that you're talking about Democrats who even supported the Second Amendment, which is certainly, you don't see a lot of them today. And so my question becomes, well, hey, if you're going to vote for who you want to vote for, can you vote for people on your side that are at least going to protect the right to keep and bear arms? because that was once indeed the case in this country, and is no longer the case today.
And if you can't, then vote for whoever will.
Then vote for whoever will.
You can put a priority of voting for who you want to, as long as they protect that right. But if they don't, you're forced. You got to turn your back on them and go find the person.
There's still those people, and I always use the analogy of Five Guys, that these couple of cows are eating these burgers going, man, these taste great. What do they make them with? And it's just like, people need to be educated that you got to look at your, when it comes down to it, the person that's responsible for your safety is the person in your own mirror.
Yeah.
And you got to do what's right for you and your family.
If you live in the city, for example, and there's a crime that occurs, it will take law enforcement quite some time to get to you. And oftentimes, I have relatives that are in law enforcement. Oftentimes, they do arrive after the crime has been committed. They don't always arrive as the crime is going on. It's usually after someone's been robbed or stabbed, or in the worst scenarios, someone or multiple individuals have been killed. And so in that moment, you are, and whomever else is around you, are the only individuals that can respond. And you're
being a gun person. I tell people, what are you going to do if somebody breaks in at 3 a.m. and they're like, oh, I keep a baseball bat under the bed. And I'm like, so you're going to become at 3 a.m, you're going to become, Babe Ruth or Hank Aaron and start swinging a baseball bat against people that are, And then, I don't know that I could ever shoot somebody. And I'm like, wait till one of these thugs takes your little girl or something, and they're going to do something in front of you. Your mind will change like that, and you're going to wish you had something to protect yourself.
Yeah.
But people don't see that happen to them.
But it's a common story. You almost wish there was a way for somebody to experience that without actually experiencing it, so they would understand how powerful that emotion would be.
It's so funny you say that. I'll give you an example. There was an individual. If someone just sent this to me, guys, on YouTube, I got to look through my text messages. I need to send it to you all. But an individual sent me a text message of a guy he didn't quite understand why sometimes in a law enforcement scenario that some officers will go for the gun first. I know this is a very touchy this is a touchy example I'm going to make here for a whole host of reasons. And I'm not saying that every one of the situations are right. I just want to be clear on the example I'm trying to point here, because we can all acknowledge not everything happens the way it should. Okay, I just want to put that caveat. With that said, this gentleman, news reporters were there, and they went into the scenario, and the guy drew the gun and shot. And in one scenario, the person was innocent. In another scenario, the guy shot way too soon without knowing all the facts. And at the end of it, the reporter asked, well, what did you think? And the guy said, I just can't believe this. I thought that I wouldn't have shot first. I wouldn't have done this first. And so I bring this example up to simply say that a lot of times some people may think I would never use a gun. I may never need a gun. I'll never be in a situation where I need to defend myself. And you would be quite surprised at how often people do find themselves in scenarios where they have to defend themselves. And you don't know.
I live in a very safe neighborhood.
Right. That's a good example. I have a friend of mine, one of my closest friends. He lives in California. He was just robbed and stabbed 20 times. I'm not kidding you. And I just spoke with him today when I was headed to the airport. And he said, Shermichael, he said, you won't believe this. He said, but you know what, bro? When I get better, I'm getting a gun. And he's someone who is not a big gun person. But that scenario, that experience that he went through made him realize that, I never thought this could happen to me. And he said, but you know what? At least if I would have had a gun, I could have defended myself. And it's terrible that people have to experience those sorts of things to realize, no matter what happens, I'm it. There's nobody else. I am literally it. He was on the ground choking on his own blood, and he asked the woman to call the police, and she kept walking. I just want to put this example out here. This just happened just a week ago to one of my closest friends. And so I'm putting this example out here to just simply say, look, I'm not saying you got to be a fanatic. I'm a fanatic. I love shooting my guns. I love competing. I love creating gun content with John. You don't have to go all in like us. But I'm simply saying recognize how having a weapon could mean the difference of you surviving and not surviving. And that alone, in my opinion, is worth it.
Now, in your rounds and your circuit, do you know Nikki Gosser?
I don't.
So
And I don't know if John
Nikki's
does.
a friend of mine, and really quickly, her story is her and her husband got married. She's a pretty karaoke singer. He would set up the songs. She ended up having a stalker that wanted to, say things to her that he shouldn't have said, and so they banned him from the bar. She's setting up the songs and got this feeling someone was watching her. So she looks over her shoulder and sees the guy trying to get into the karaoke bar. And she tells the bouncers, "Don't let that guy in. That's the guy that's been stalking me on MySpace." And the guy said, and the stalker says, "That was my ex-girlfriend or my husband, my wife, whatever. Let me go talk to Nikki and apologize." And he comes in the bar and they have some words. And next thing you know, he reaches in his coat and kills Nikki's husband right in front of her, zippers him.
Wow.
So she wrote a book called Denied a Chance because she was a gun owner. She knew how to use it, but she was in a bar, so she couldn't carry. And she was denied a chance to defend herself. So now she's all in gun rights and working for legislator and fighting, getting laws changed, getting stalker laws changed. And just like her case, all of these people that have had some life-changing experience happen to them. Go back, it segues back to Philip said, you wish you could show them before something happens to them, whether it's Nikki or whether it's your friend or somebody just watching this program.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
John, you're
really
muted.
Good point.
You're muted, John. It looked like you were going to say a few things and never could hear you.
I read your lips and you made some great points.
My bad. No, I was just going to piggyback off of what Sherm said, though, and everything that you guys are saying. I think it's absolutely important that people understand. I think a lot of people think that when you become a gun owner, you're going to become this more aggressive person or something like that. But to be honest, it's like when you become a firearms owner and then you take the training and you understand what the scenarios can be, because we've taken so much training that we've seen so many different scenarios acted out, so many scenarios presented that you don't really think about in your everyday life. But as a gun owner, you need to think about it because you want to put yourself in smart situations, right?
You actually become the opposite of the aggressive person.
Exactly.
You don't want to be part of anything. You stand back and you're extra polite.
I mean, and it's not only just that, but you're just thinking smarter because you know you have a firearm on you. So you're thinking smarter, you're behaving differently. And I think that is something that a lot of people could stand to use in their mindset, in their mindset, because, you know, these people are walking around very aloof. Like, yes, it won't happen to me, like your friend Sherm. That's tragic to hear about what happened to your friend, man. And it's like, you know, that was the last thing on his mind, thinking that something like that might happen to him, right? And there's so many other people
doing everything right.
Yeah, there's so many other people out here doing the exact same thing.
John touched on something, because it's not just the right to keep and bear arms. I mean, obviously that has a lot to do with it, but a lot of it also is, like Sherm said, with the education and attitude and awareness. It's a whole package. You know, just having a tool does you nothing. You can have a table saw sitting in your shop, but if you don't know how to use it, it does you absolutely no good.
Yes,
that's right.
Absolutely.
Nope, you're absolutely right. And I think a lot of times, you know, when I talk to people, and, you know, I do a lot of commentary on MSNBC and a show on MSNBC. And, you know, a lot of times when I talk to people in the space, I have found that even those who are like, I'm completely against guns, once you start having the conversations with them, even if I can't bring them all the way to where I am, you do realize that when people are more informed and aware, you can see the light bulbs going off. Like, well, you know, I never thought about this, or I didn't know this. And so I just always believe education is everything. Now, you're not going to convince everybody on any topic, right? I mean, we can all acknowledge that. It's never 100% of everybody. But I think if you can have some movement where at least people's perspectives are much more open-minded, that to me is a step in the right direction. And I just think a lot of times people just what they see on television, or it's what they read or what they hear, and they honestly, guys, I'm just telling you what I know. They just don't know. And when you start teaching people, then they start saying, well, you know, I didn't think about that. Then next thing you know, I'm getting a phone call somewhere. Hey, you know, Sherm, you know, I've been looking at what's going on, man, in my neighborhood. I need to get a gun. I don't really want anybody to know this, but can you teach me and tell me what I need to get? And I enjoy those conversations because you do see the growth. And again, and these guys aren't doing what we're doing. They're not going all out. They're not
Even
advocating.
if they don't become like you and want to be gung ho, maybe they're at least now no longer into banning.
Yeah.
And we tell our members frequently. We tell our members frequently, you know, if you see a letter to the editor that's full of baloney, engage it. Write your own letter. Counter. Don't let any of these lies go unchallenged.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to inform people, Philip. That's a good point. People need to be informed.
Yeah. And like what he was saying earlier about getting the people to vote for, you know, pro-gun candidates and things like that, that also goes into the line of getting people that aren't even voting or aren't even in the argument involved. And that's the next thing. That's the big thing about our content. We try to focus our content to reach people that are indifferent. So that way they can see this as something that's palatable, something that they can at a minimum have a voice in, and then have the right voice in it.
Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight. You're planting a seed, and it takes time to grow. All of a sudden, the pieces start to come together, and they heard this and they heard that, and suddenly it all melds, and they go, okay, what you're doing is you're reaching out to the people sitting on the fence. Yeah, there's no point in trying to convert the people that hate guns. Who cares? It's the people that are on that fence that can't quite make up their mind. They're getting bad information. They're getting some good information, and suddenly you pull it together for them over time. Those people will make a huge difference if we can bring them in.
And it's a lot of those people. It is. I mean, people will be surprised. It is a lot of those people who are, you know, indifferent. They say, hey, I have a gun, but, you know, I'm not really into this, or I don't really know what I think about that particular issue, or I've never heard of this, or I don't know how this impacts me. You got to plant the seed, and you have to keep watering the seed, and over time it will bear fruit.
And expanding their thoughts that it's not just about them. It's about a country. It's about effecting a right that will affect not only them, but their children and their children's children. I was at the Surrey County Board of Supervisors, and one of the employees that worked there was the only person that spoke in favor of a gun ban they're looking at doing in government buildings. And I was a little embarrassed. She's a black concealed handgun permit female, has a permit, but she said, well, because I can't carry a gun at work, I don't want anybody else to be able to carry a gun where I'm at work. I don't, if I'm disarmed, I don't want other people to be armed.
And like Philip said earlier, those are people that are going to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
since you can't because of your code of conduct, let the other people protect you.
But it's reaching out beyond yourself. It's about more than just you. Freedom and liberty. Is more than about you. It's about an entire country, an entire future. And you've got to be able to step into that world and set aside your own personal world as much as possible for the better good.
Yeah. No, well said, Philip. Well said. I think, I think as more and more people purchase firearms and more communities of color and firearms become, I won't say become more mainstream because everybody likes action movies and John Wick and the Terminator and RoboCop. And that's a bit of an old one, but I'm just using it as an example. Firearms is in every blockbuster movie and have been for a long time. Mm-hmm. And culturally, people, for the most part, enjoy them. And look, I understand violence. God knows I understand it, even personally. And I get the knee-jerk reaction of people when they see horrible things. We just want to respond. I understand that. It's a human nature. We just got to respond. But I think we have to just be smarter at how we respond. And people say, well, this is happening because of this. And say, well, wait a minute here, guys. Let's pause. Are there other aspects that as a society we need to address to prohibit some of these things versus saying, well, just take away the gun? Or is there a mental illness going on? Or are there some family, parental things? What are those other things that we as a society as a whole to say, wait a minute, maybe if we start building these things up, then we'll see a reduction over here. And we don't often think about those things.
Had guns for hundreds of years. That hasn't changed. Mm-hmm. Clearly, that didn't.
Well, just like when there's a mass shooting, people are like, "Oh, you need to put some vets at every school, or increase the number of cops at every school." And Philip and I talk about this is like, do like Utah. Let parents, teachers, cafeteria workers, administrators, coaches, librarians, cooks. Let all those people carry like they do in their normally everyday life. Then the bad guy won't target that place because he knows people are going to shoot back instead of going into a zone where nobody has a gun.
This is so funny because When I was a federal civilian employee, I was a project manager for the Sexual Assault Prevention and Response Unit at Quantico. And one of the things that literally that they started to push right when I came on board was the importance of getting more people involved in the conversation. Because when you think about a sexual predator or somebody, you know, these people are paying attention to surroundings. And if they go into an area where they hear people having a conversation about improper behavior, they're going to be more conscious. They're going to be more aware to stay away from that area, right? So if you have more people that are involved in the conversation about gun rights and about the importance of gun rights and about training and about, you know, gun purchasing in general, it's gonna create an environment where these people are gonna know that they don't have their way anywhere that they go, because they don't know where there's going to be a responsible gun owner. They just have no idea. So having all of these signs up saying no guns allowed here, that's saying guns allowed here by the people that don't care about this sign. That's what that's saying. So now you're creating a whole bunch of victims at that point. So it's just, I feel like there's so many other common sense things that could be done that can prevent a lot of this violence, instead of just trying to prevent responsible gun owners from being the protectors.
The shooter in Aurora, Colorado said he went to 8 movie theaters before he found one that said no guns allowed before he made his target.
Yeah, no, I think when you think about people who are committing mass violence, I mean, I think there's a mental thing there. I just don't see how it's not mental. I mean, you can't be any sane person, reasonable person, wouldn't just go and kill a bunch of people. Mm-hmm. And so for me, you know, being a political person, a former political person, I'm thinking from a legislative perspective, we need to address that. Like, if I'm looking at a problem, my brain starts to think, well, what is the root of the problem? Where is this coming from? Who's committing the problem? Why? What's leading to the problem? And I'm thinking, okay, you have a lot of young boys and they're going through all these things and the bullying and this and that until finally they explode. They start shooting up kids at school. So then I'm thinking, well, that's what I need to start focusing my attention to. That's what I got to start addressing, because if I can fix that, then it won't lead to this.
Right.
And we're not thinking about that. And I do not know why.
What made life so cheap that for whatever trivial reason you feel you have the right to kill somebody else?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's exactly the point I'm making.
You have to be careful too, talking about mental illness. There's no denying that somebody that is willing to go and commit mass murder has mental issues. But the vast majority of people that suffer from mental illness never get violent.
That's a good point too.
We don't want to paint the wide brush there.
Yeah, and some of this is just no parenting.
No, Pat, that's a good point.
Some of these kids they're basically feral. They're like an animal that's just never been socialized. It's a primitive human that just thinks the world is about them and they can kill or do whatever they want at will, because nobody's taught them that no, human life is precious. You don't ever take it unless it's your last resort and they're going to kill you first. That's
I'm saying is
that's not mental illness.
Yeah, all I'm saying is we have to drill down to the real problem and be careful not to stereotype. But
no,
John,
Pat, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Both
and I think you can do that. I think you can do that, whether it's a values thing, if it's a culture, you can do that. But the point that I'm trying to make, the overall point, is simply this: we need to narrow down on what that issue is, and not going to just taking away people's rights to bear arms. And that's what I think the knee-jerk reaction is. Too quickly, we're going to ignore trying to figure out what the problem is and just take away the gun and it's going to make it better. And that has never been the case, at least from any research that I've seen.
Absolutely. And, both John and Shermichael have brought up some interesting concepts here that we've talked about in the past, but never really drilled down onto. There's a lot of people out there that don't know that they need to care about our rights. And then B, the other problem that we're fighting is there are people, a lot of gun owners are afraid to talk about gun rights to people because of the stigma attached to it.
Yeah.
And they like John was saying that he didn't know you were a gun owner, Sherm, until he talked to you one day about going to buy a gun, or I forget exactly what the conversation was there, but people that don't know that other people are gun owners are afraid to talk about it because they're afraid that they will be attacked. They're afraid of the stigma attached to it.
Or
and
shunned.
we really need to break that mold and make it back to mainstream. There was a time where everybody carried a gun for the most part. It was normal. It was considered normal.
Gun ownership is wholesome, Pat. It's wholesome. It's not something to be, but they've turned it around like everything else. It's upside down.
But it wasn't that long ago that kids would take their dad's elephant gun to school for show and tell. I mean, it was that mainstream. Of course, the parents would come with it, but it was still acceptable to bring that gun to school for show and tell and talk about dad's trip to Africa,
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think too that it's gun owners' responsibilities to also be, you have to be very responsible in everything that you do when concealed carrying or just carrying in general. Because personally, I've had several instances where people did not know that I was a gun owner, which is kind of surprising now, because that's like, you could tell there's certain people that I haven't talked to in a long time, and they don't know exactly what I've been doing for the last 18 months to 2 years. And then they stumble upon me again, and then they find out that I'm a practicing gun owner, and I take it very seriously. And in those instances, because of my character and because of however they found out, whether it be that they came home with me, we were out somewhere, we came home, and then I took off my concealed carry and I put it in my drawer or something like that. And it's like, oh wow, I didn't even know you had that on you. I was like, yeah, it's concealed carry for a reason. But it's in the proper holster. I didn't make them feel unsafe by just having it laying around. I immediately stowed it away, and that's responsible gun ownership. So now you can have a meaningful, reasonable conversation with somebody because you haven't scared the crap out of them because you're doing reckless things with firearms, and that was their first experience with it. So it's all about the individual. Every individual has that responsibility, and everybody should take that responsibility very seriously.
And some people say, don't call it concealed carry, call it discreet carry.
Yeah. Because especially in Virginia, when it's an open carry state, right? So we can
as the founder of Virginia Open Carry, I agree.
Oh, don't talk about open carry. Sherm will open carry, boy. Sherm will take it back to the Wild West if Sherm could.
I don't do it often anymore after having some questionable experiences with people calling the cops on me and me not wanting to get shot because people just see a black man open carrying a gun. It is what it is, and I like living. But with that said,
that's the shame of it, because I open carry, and the comments that I get are more. First off, people will ask me if I'm law enforcement. I mean, I'm sorry, I really don't look like law enforcement, but that's the first question that I get, and then the second question that I get is usually, well, why? And it's a teaching moment most of the time.
Yeah,
but it's an old chubby white woman that is open carrying a gun is not threatening to most people. Although I did have someone call the cops on me in my own store, which had a gun store in a convenience store. and a woman was at the cash register of the convenience store, and then all of a sudden ran out the door because she saw me carrying a shotgun out the back door to take it over next door to work on it. So, of course, the dispatcher said, excuse me, but you do realize there's a gun store in there, right? So,
well, on two Memorial Days ago, I was on my motorcycle with the big flag on the back of my bike, wearing a flagged shirt with a gun. Actually, I have the module. It might not show up on camera, but the module looks like a flag. And the lady calls 911 and says, there's a guy on a motorcycle flashing his gun around everywhere. and after, it's like, what do you mean flashing? Well, I can see it. So he's not holding it? No, it's in his holster on his belt. And at the traffic light, he looked at me. It's a 911 call.
Yeah,
the cops are like, we know who that is. Don't worry about it. He's fine.
It's tough, and I mean, there's no doubt that again, I've open carried, but again, I'm nobody pays much attention. I never had the cops called on me ever, But what happened to
We can fix
you,
that.
Shermichael? There was a case down in Norfolk back in the early 2000s, somewhere in that ballpark, probably around 2001, 2002, where a black gun owner was standing open carrying outside a bank, waiting for his girlfriend to get off work and come out. And the police came over. They harassed him. They took his gun. They ended up arresting him. And we got involved in that. There was a lawsuit. The city of Norfolk lost the lawsuit and owed him a bunch of money. And then we all went to Norfolk City Council after that to tell them, yeah, you need to, they had some gun bans going on. This before preemption was completely in place. You need to do something about this. And this gentleman just won a lawsuit because your police officers didn't realize that open carry is okay in Virginia. And that right after that city council meeting in Norfolk, we went across to this little mall area where they had a restaurant, and we all had a celebratory little dinner after telling city council about this and telling them to be careful, don't do this again. And we all left after eating at the restaurant. And would you believe, as he went out by himself, they stopped him and arrested him again.
They arrested him again.
And they said, "Where'd you get this gun?"
You can't make.
And he said, "I got it from the lawsuit when I beat you guys last time you arrested me."
The city attorney refused to drop the charges again, and he ended up winning again. It was like,
I mean, but you know what, Philip? It's crazy, and I just bring that point up because as a lot of times, a lot of people of color will ask, hey, I want to get a gun, but if I get one, I'm a little bit nervous of public perception. I don't know if I get pulled over. How will a person act? There are all of these questions, and they are unfortunate questions. But I will say that I do think it is part of the reason why some may be a little hesitant to get a gun, or let alone. Sure. I mean, with all my experience with guns, I just do not open carry because I'm being honest. I just don't want to deal with it. I do not want to deal with the craziness.
The problem, of course,
could potentially come.
And the problem is sort of legitimate because if you watch TV and you don't know much about anything else, what do you typically see? It's a young black male killing another young black male, or it's rare in those situations where you got these people just being shot on the street that it's anything other than a young black male. The vast majority are. So people mistakenly then, of course, want to paint everybody like everybody's all the same. No, those are exceptions, and there are young white males that kill people as well. But it's just the perception, and then that gets carried forward when they see you. Then people have this. Now they have this built-in thing. Well, every time I've ever seen something about a black guy and a gun, it's somebody getting murdered, and that's sadly not.
So the police, there's this black guy carrying a gun, so I just don't do it. And you know what? There is some element to surprise with discreet carrying or concealed carrying, if that's what you want to call it. So. But I will say every once in a while when I feel like being a contrarian in the past, and I would do it. But after that one experience, guys, that was enough for me to say, you know what, the hell with this. I'm just not even interested in dealing with the craziness.
Well, and the truth of it is, like you say, they all have their advantages. I can tell you now that I probably would have had to shoot somebody if I hadn't been open carrying in Suffolk a few years ago. The guy saw my gun and suddenly decided he had other things to do that day. He'd forgot about laundry or something he had to do, so he disappeared. But if I was carrying concealed, I'm pretty sure he was planning on me being a victim. But on the other hand, concealed carry, I do that more than I do open carry, and by far, you've got some strategic advantages there. You also have a little bit longer draw time, but you've got that advantage. So the point is, bottom line is, you can protect yourself, and that's the most important part.
That's the most
whether it's open or
concealed,
what matters is you can protect yourself.
And VCDLs, we don't care if you open carry or concealed carry. We just want you to carry legally.
Yeah,
that's it. That's it.
Your choice.
And
we're getting towards 9:30, and I hate to cut the conversation short, but I also want to give you both to give you the opportunity to tell people where to follow you, how to individually to follow your channel, all that type of stuff, so we can keep this going. And then, obviously save a little bit for next time, because I don't think this is the last time we're going to have you on.
No, we'd love to come back.
Yeah, better not be Ed.
So gunsoutTV.com. And what about your personal socials, or what do you want to share?
Yes. So Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter, it's at GunsOutTV. Go to our website, gunsoutTV.com. Subscribe to the newsletter. We try to send out emails at least on a weekly basis of new episodes that we're working on. If you want to contribute to us as well to keep us going with the content creation, it's not expensive. It's not inexpensive, rather, to create high value content. You can do that on the website as well. Like John said, it's just really important for us to reach new people who are coming into this space, and they're different, and you got to be able to deliver the content in a way that will reach people where they are. And like Philip said, it's about planting that seed. And Pat, I'm sure you can have had this experience as well. A lot of new women coming into the space. A lot of women are like, where do I go? What's something that can be comfortable for me? So John and I have been talking about opening and starting a Guns Out women version. And so that's something that we're going to be working on soon. And so we're really just trying to create content for new people that's educational, but it's also experiential and fun, because a lot of data shows that when people are having fun, it's easier to educate them. It's why in school, teachers like, oh, we got to make this fun because kids will grasp the material. Well, that's typically true as people age until adulthood. And so we said, well, you know what? We can't just do the typical, let's do some reviews, let's do some training, and there you go. We said, no, we got to make this exciting. We got to make people pumped up to watch Guns Out TV. And as they're pumped up, they're learning, oh, man, that's this type of gun, or I should learn about this type of training, or this is a law that I didn't really know much about. And so we're hoping, as you said, Philip, planting that seed will eventually turn into something big that will bear a lot of fruit, that we hope will bring a lot of people on the journey.
Yeah.
And so hopefully on your show, Philip and I had an interview with you guys that I'm sure it's back in the editing room still.
Coming soon. Yeah.
And the funniest thing I got out of that is we were talking about the interview, whatever, and Shermichael was talking to Pat about something, and he tells me, so Ed, I was talking to your secretary the other day, and I'm like, wait, Pat is now my secretary.
Pat, I promise I didn't say that.
Pat, it's on tape.
Listen,
I've been called worse.
I don't remember him saying that. Did you say that?
No. Ed is.
Philip?
Ed, I think I made.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Well, he just said the secretary, but he said a secretary, or your secretary.
So
real quick, I noticed in the chat there was a couple people that recognized that we were on the Warrior Poet Society network too, and they were kind of excited that we were war poets. So definitely check out. We have a full season on Warrior Poet Society network, completed season, 10 episodes. It's really, really good content. It actually goes into great detail of our origin story of us getting canceled off of television, broadcast television, because of the January 6th insurrection. It shows our firsthand footage from being there, because we work right on Capitol Hill. So we have some of that footage in there. So it's a really good watch. The whole season is really good. And we're currently working on season 2. So if you're a subscriber to the network, check us out on Warrior Poet Society Network. And if you're not, you might want to subscribe. It's definitely worth it. Season 2 is going to be even better than season 1. So I think you guys will like that.
So let me ask you a quick question. Are you guys planning on coming down to Richmond for our lobby day on Martin Luther King Day?
Yeah, if I'm available, I'd love to come down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Pat, why you guys got to do this on one of the most, Pat, there's so much stuff going on. I got to just put that out there, Pat. Let me pause a minute. Now,
just putting you on the spot.
There's a lot going on that weekend, okay?
Man, she trying to have us in traffic and everything.
I had to think about that, Pat. I love the day, but I'm thinking, man, there's a lot of celebrations going on then. Pat, come on, MLK, could it be the day before, the day after? No.
All right, everybody.
Jokes aside, I think we'd love to come, and it could even be, just something interesting just to be there to capture that experience, just to show people advocating. And that's even, I would even say, guys, just a good part of the political process in general, not even just relegated to firearms. Just say, hey, this is the importance of being engaged in the political process in general, making sure that people that we elect are being held accountable with the.
Well, you're both Virginians, right?
And we are. So yeah, absolutely,
Well,
Pat. I think that's a wonderful thing.
And we have a rally, of course. That's the main thing, the big rally that we have. So you might want to.
Oh yeah, we've seen that
picture.
The one big picture all over the place with what 60,000 people.
Yeah, yeah. But we do the rally every year, so you might want to speak at the rally. I might invite you to speak at that.
Do you guys do the rally also on MLK Day?
Yeah, it's all part of the same event. We lobby that day, but we have a rally at 11 to noon at the bell tower right there at the General Assembly.
Nice.
Oh, very nice.
A rally doesn't always look like the 60,000 though.
No.
I've seen so many people following you guys that I was a bit surprised. I mean, some people that I didn't even know were into guns. And I was going through the Instagram and looking at some of the people who followed you guys. I was like, oh, I didn't even know that she was into guns. I've never seen her post anything about a gun before. So that was interesting. You guys got quite a varied following that I don't even know if you guys are aware of.
Probably not.
I was a bit surprised going through some of your Instagram followers.
I'm aware.
He said, I'm aware.
Well, we're very public, I even invite the police to follow us and everything else. We don't do anything in secret. We're more than happy and open and lawful. And we
well, that's the thing that Philip. I'm bringing that up to say that there's probably quite a few quiet gun owners, like people who don't really say much. I think maybe Ed or Pat, one of them mentioned this early in the conversation. Some people who just say, I got a gun. I'm discreet with it, but they're following you guys. And I've seen some folks, and I just didn't know. And I was thinking to myself, I know this person. I have never known this person to say anything about a gun, but they're following you guys. And I presume they're following you guys because I presume they're a gun owner. So, there's a lot of quiet people out there who say, hey, I'm a gun owner and I'm quiet about it. But they're supporting, either they're giving some money or they're telling other people that they're close to. But that's also, again, like
I imagine some of our haters follow us too.
Yeah.
Well,
that's always the case.
But hey, the haters will promote too. So hey, why not?
Maybe they'll learn something. I invite them to follow us. I don't care. That maybe they'll learn something.
Right.
We're happy to share.
So there's always a lot of those people out there that I think people only see some of the advocates out there. But I think there are a lot of people who are quiet, who own firearms, and who want that right not to be taken away from them. Right. That are also supporters, and those people can be strong supporters as well. Because those are the people who might surprise other folks. Say, oh, well, you know what? My cousin is a gun owner. And I didn't even know my cousin's a good person. So, maybe my cousin should have his right to own. Those types of things can be tangible ways for people to, over time, change their minds and opinions. And like you said, Philip, it's all about planting that seed. And eventually become vocal. That's right.
Yeah,
exactly right. Well, I want to thank you guys again for joining us. And glad you got your firearms. Glad you had a safe flight. We'll do this again. God. And followers out there, follow these guys. Keep the comments and questions. Like and share the video. And thank you all for joining us tonight. And have a great night.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much, guys. We appreciate it. Philip, Pat, Ed. Thank you guys so much. We hope to come back soon.
Okay.
Hope you will. Thanks.
And I did not call Pat secretary.